Welcome to MRU E-Learning powered by Malla Reddy University. So my name is Dr. Charan from Soil Science Department, School of Agriculture Sciences, Malla Reddy University. So today we are going to deal about these problematic soils and their management course. So we are going to deal about what is the definition of problematic soils, what is the type of problematic soils, that may be of physical, chemical and biological problematic soils. So coming to your problematic soils, so the soils which possess characters which made them uneconomical for their cultivation, and they can only after reclamation they can be used for their agricultural cultivation. So this is from the agriculture point of view. So basically there are three types of problems identified. One is physical, chemical and biological problems. So physical problems include slow permeable soils, soil surface crusting, shallow soils, high permeable soils, fluffy peaty soils and highly eroded soils. Whereas these chemical problematic soils include acidic soils, salt affected soils, calcareous soils and acid sulfate soils. So within these salt affected soils, it includes saline soils, alkali soils and saline alkali soils. Whereas the biological problems include soil organic carbon and microbial population, earthworms, soil respiration and soil enzymes. So first coming to your physical problems, the first problem is our slow permeable soils, in which there is more amount of clay content present, so which leads to more amount of runoff and also nutrient removal. These are the problems that are caused within the slow permeable soils. To remediate that slow permeable soils, we are going to include some soil conditioners such as FYM compost, which will increase the porosity and also help to maintain the vertical movement into the soil. So, and also by formation of ridges and furrows, where we can reduce the amount of nutrient removal and also we can conserve the moisture. Okay, and also by application of your surface dryness. So second problem is your soil surface crusting. As you can see in the photo, so this soil surface crusting is a very hardened layer which is around 0.5 mm to around 5 mm of thickness is there. So which is formed due to the colloidal oxides of iron and aluminium, which binds the soil particles under these wet rhizomes. So basically what happens in this soil surface crusting is, so when these clay particles which have a size of around less than 0.002 mm will enter into the macro and micropores, which are having a spaces of macropore spacing is more than 0.08 mm and micropore spacing is less than 0.08 mm. And the size of the clay particle, individual clay particle, is very less when compared to this macropore and micropore. So these clay particles can easily enter into this macropores as well as your micropores, leading to blocking of this macropores and micropores. This results in the formation of a hardened layer that is known as our soil crust. Okay, so what is the problem with this problem? So soil surface crusting is if you are going to sow any type of seeds, that is small grain seeds, they are not able to germinate. Okay, and the remedial measures for these physical problems or soil surface crusting is the plowing at the optimum moisture and also by application of your soil conditioners. And also you can scrape the soil surface, the crust that is formed on the surface of the soil. So next problem is your subsurface soil hard pan, which means the clay particles which are present on the surface layer will enter into the subsurface and resulting in the formation of hardened layer, which is combined along with your iron, aluminium and calcium carbonate, results in the formation of a hard pan. So this can be controlled by using a subsurface tillage operation such as chisel plowing and also by FIM incorporation. As we can increase the amount of porosity, we can decrease the hard pan that is formed within the subsurface. And next problem is your shallow soils, in which the rooting depth is very much less. That may be caused due to the parent material, because the rock that is formed from which the parent material, from which the soil is formed, is located very near to the soil. So the main remedial measure that we can do is growing of the shallow root crops or we can suggest the crops that can withstand a shallowness, such as your mango, gooseberry, and tamarind. And this is how the subsurface hard pan will look like. So where you can see some amount of white color patches happening here. So that is known as your subsurface soil pan. And in case of shallow soils, so this is your soil. Okay, and the root is restricted for around 15 centimeters or around 20 centimeters. After that one, the rock will be present. So this is known as your shallow soils. So next is your high permeable soils. So last we have learned about the slow permeable soils where we are having more amount of clay content. In case of high permeable soils, we are having more amount of sandy content, which means more amount of coarse particles are present. So that is why the water can easily enter into the soils due to presence of more macro porosity. The remedial measures for this high permeable soils is so uniform and shallow plowing, and also by application of some amount of clay to reduce the increase the amount of the porosity, and also by providing a sheet below the soil surface to reduce the infiltration rate into the soil. Also by growing some green manure crops. And next physical problem is your fluffy paddy soils. So these fluffy paddy soils are basically when they are formed, they are around 15 centimeters, 20 centimeters below the soil, where you are maintaining a stable water condition. So these clay particles are broken into uniform particles, and they are formed as a layer. So that on that layer, the water can be easily withstanded. So the main problem is the soil aggregates won't be present in case of your or very less amount of aggregates are present within the fluffy paddy soils. So to withstand this, we should stop the irrigation at the end of our rice cultivation, and also by using some compact in the field with around stone roller or providing some amount of sand, which can result in formation of some aggregates. So this is how a highly permeable soil will look like, where you can see more amount of porous, sandy, coarse particles are present, resulting in more amount infiltration of your water. So whereas in case of low permeable soils, you can see more amount of size, more amount of particles are present when compared to high permeable soils, resulting in very less inundation of your water. And this is how the fluffy paddy soils will look like, where after drying it will lead to formation of so much amount of cracks. So these are your physical problematic soils. And next coming is your soil erosion. So what is meant by this soil erosion? So soil erosion results in the formation of detachment, transportation, and deposition of the soil mass, which means they are detached from one location, and from where they are detached, they are transported either by wind or water, and after that they would have deposited anywhere. So these are the three mechanisms: detachment, transportation, and deposition that occurs within the soil erosion. The main causes for this is either wind or water. So what are the causes of this soil erosion? Okay, so the first is your deforestation. So where you can see in these photos, the overall amount of forestation is cut down, and when this rainfall is coming, this rainfall will hit the bare soil, resulting in enhancement of the soil erosion. And next is your running water. So if the force of running water will increase, or the velocity will be increases, it will take the amount of small fine particles or the coarse fine sized particles along with them, resulting in the formation of your erosion. Next is overgrazing. So in this overgrazing, we are going to, in case of grassland soils, we are going to expose the amount of bare soil directly to the environment, so that the amount of rainfall that is receiving on the surface will be increased, resulting in the formation of your soil erosion, and also some amount of faulty methods and over irrigation. So these are the causes which are occurring in case of your soil erosion. Okay. So next, what are types of soil erosion? So there are two types of soil erosion, where this naturally occurring soil erosion and accelerated soil erosion. So naturally occurring soil erosion means the rate of soil formation is more than the rate of soil loss. So that is not a big problem in case of a natural or geological erosion. Whereas in case of accelerated erosion, the rate of soil formation is less than the rate of soil loss, which means more amount of soil loss will be there when compared to the rate of soil formation. So this will be classified into two types. One is water erosion and one is wind erosion. So based on the movement of the soil particles, so wind erosion is divided into three parts. That is your saltation, suspension and surface creep, which means the motion in which the wind particles will move from one place to another. And in case of water erosion, it will start from splash erosion, where this rainfall will hit the soil particle and the movement of the soil particles will be starting. So this is a sequence how the water erosion will happen. So it will start from the raindrop erosion and will continue to sheet erosion, rill erosion, gully erosion, resulting in the formation of ravines and also the landslides. So first coming to that raindrop erosion or splash erosion. As you can see, the raindrop which is hitting the bare soil. So these soil particles are going to a vertical distance of 0.7 meters and to a horizontal distance of 1.5 meters. Okay, so these particles are transported to around horizontal of 0.7 meters and a vertical of 0.7 meters and a horizontal of 1.5 meters. And these are detached from the soils and they are transported, and you can see they are deposited at a particular location. And this is how a splash erosion will look like. So this splash erosion will depends upon the parameters such as your climate. Where more amount of rainfall is there, more amount of splash erosion will happen, and the soil inherent resistance. If more amount of soil aggregates are present, then very less amount of splash erosion will be happening. And also depending upon the topography, if it is a high topography or a less topography. And also the vegetative cover. If more amount of vegetative cover is present, then there is resulting in the very less amount of the soil erosion. If less amount of vegetation is present, you can see the bare soil is directly exposed to the raindrops, resulting in more erosion. And next coming to your sheet erosion. Sheet erosion is nothing but the uniform removal of the soil layer, which is unnoticed by the farmers. And this is extremely harmful as our nutrients, available nutrients or the essential elements are concentrated mostly on the top layer of this soil. This soil erosion can be easily these nutrients can be easily removed, and this is extremely harmful and also unnoticed by the farmers. And this sheet erosion results in the formation of rills. So these rills are you can see these are present. So these are known as rills. Okay, these are nothing but your water channels. From there, where the water is dropping, the water will grow through a channels. So these are nothing but your water channels, small water channels. So the place between two rills is known as your interrill. Okay. So these rills, they are having a very less depth and also width. So this rill width and length will increase and also depth will increase. It leads to formation of your gully erosion. So in case of rill erosion, you can see very less width and also the depth of the channels. Whereas in gully erosion, you can see the depth of the channel is increased and also the width of the channel is also be increased in this gully erosion. So it is also known as the advanced stage of the rill erosion. So where you can see, it can be easily noticeable for the farmers or the layman. So next coming to your stream bank erosion. It is nothing but the scouring due to more movement along the river banks, the amount of soil will be lost. So this is known as your stream bank erosion. It occurs mostly at the low end of the stream tributaries, and it depends upon the stream bank erosion depends upon the velocity of the water that is traveling and also the depth and width of the channel. It also depends upon the soil texture. So these are your water erosions. So next coming to what are the effects of the water erosion. So as you can see, in case of splash or rill or any gully erosion, you can see uniform removal of the top fertile soil, where you can where it will decrease the soil productivity and also it will accumulate some amount of sand particles, so which is not congenial for the formation of your plants. And also it causes the siltage of drainage and water channels, reducing the capacity of the water channels, or particularly the reservoirs. And also it decreases the, as you can see, more amount of horizontal movement is there, as there is no vertical movement, the decrease in water table can be happens. And also there is a fragmentation of land happens, where in case of gully erosion, so more amount of gullies are formed, the more amount of land is fragmented. So next, coming to your wind erosion. So what are the conditions that are congenial for your wind erosion? In case of water erosion, it is formed mostly in the humid regions where more amount of rainfall is received. And this wind erosion is caused mostly in arid and semi-arid regions. So why it is happening is, so as you can see, if you are mixing this water along with soil, there are two forces acting. One is cohesion force and adhesion force, which can withstand the amount of, if more amount of water we are keeping, then very less amount of wind erosion happens, because the cohesive and adhesive forces will be acting within the soil, between the soil as well as your water. So where wind erosion, very dry climate is required. So that is arid and semi-arid regions, and also where you are having very insufficient amount of rainfall along with less vegetation cover. And one thing is that finer size particles. It may be your clay particles, or maybe your fine size coarse particles. So there are three steps which are happening in case of your wind erosion. So first coming is your saltation. So this saltation contributes around 50 to 70% of the total wind erosion, of which you can see there is a bouncing of the soil particles. So the particle will be bouncing to the air, and again it will come down to the soil. This continuous bouncing will happening in case of your saltation. Whereas in case of your suspension, very light particles of a particle size less than 0.1 mm are suspended into the air, where they are due to the wind currents. So that is called as your suspension. And next, surface creep. This happens in the very large particles, where you can see only the horizontal movement is there on the soil. So this is your saltation. So in which the process of a series of jumps will be happening, which is a particle size of 0.05 to 0.5 mm, and which is caused due to the pressure of wind and also the bombardment of the soil particles. In case of suspension, which means there is a floating of the small sized particles. The particle size is less than 0.1 mm, and these fine particles will be going into the air, and they will be roaming within the air. And next, coming to your surface creep, is nothing but a rolling or sliding of the particles on the ground surface, which happens with the heavy particles, that is more than 0.5 mm. As they are very heavy to be lifted by wind, they will move along with the ground. So these are your physical problems associated. Next, coming to your chemical problems. So first is your soil acidity. So basically, soil acidity is the proton donating capacity of the soil during its transition from a given state to a reference state, which is measured by using a pH. So what are the sources of the soil acidity? So first is leaching due to heavy rainfall. In case of mountainous regions, where there is excess amount of rainfall happening, so you can see the basic cations such as your potassium, calcium, magnesium, they will be leached out along with your water, and only the iron and aluminium along with hydrogen, they will be retained within the soil, causing the amount of soil acidity. So this, you can see here the colloid, which is binded with your potassium, calcium and magnesium, it will be replaced by your hydrogen, resulting in the formation of more acidity and less pH. And also based on inherent capacity, that is your acidic parent material. Example is your granite, and also some acid forming fertilizers such as your urea, and also your ammonium sulfate, ammonium fertilizers, and as your urea, which increases the reaction when it released into the soil will increase the amount of hydrogen ion concentration. Okay, and also the humus and organic acids, in this where the organic matter decomposition happens, there is more amount of release of your carboxylic and phenols. So this carboxylic acid when reacting with your water results in the formation of hydronium, which again releases some amount of H plus ions into the soil. And these aluminum silicate minerals or iron or aluminum, the chemistry of iron and aluminum within the acidic soil is the same. As you can see, with increase in the pH, as pH increases from 8 to 11, it is going to increase the hydrogen ion concentration. For a particular, if you can see from pH less than 4, you can see only one hydrogen ions is released. This is nothing but your buffering capacity. That is, you maintain the pH at a stable condition. It is continuously releasing some amount of hydrogen ions into the soil. And next is your carbon dioxide concentration. As your carbon dioxide concentration increases, it leads to formation of carbonic acid. So this carbonic acid will be disintegrated into bicarbonate and one hydrogen ion, leading to decrease in the pH and increasing in the soil acidity. As you can see here, aluminum polymers, they will act as a buffer. As your pH will increase, more amount of hydrogens are released to maintain a stable or buffer pH within the soil. So there are three types of soil acidity. One is your active acidity, exchangeable acidity, and residual acidity or reserve acidity. The active acidity is nothing but your hydrogen and aluminum. So hydrogen is direct contributor for your acidity, whereas aluminum is indirect contributor. As you can see, the iron polymers or aluminum polymers, they are, as pH increases, the aluminum is disintegrated into your aluminum hydroxides and as well as your hydrogen ion. So this hydrogen and aluminum, if they are present within the soil solution, then it is known as your active acidity. Okay, and next is your exchangeable acidity, which is an adsorbed form in which the colloid particles will absorb the hydrogen and aluminum ions which are present on the surface. That is known as your exchangeable acidity. Next is your residual acidity, which is non-exchangeable forms, that is directly binded with your clay and organic matter. So that is known as a residual acidity or reserve acidity. Next, coming to your acid sulfate soils. So these soils are specially formed in the drained coastal wetlands, and the characteristic of this is it have a pH of less than 4. It varies from 2.5 to 4.5 or around 4. And the main is due to the oxidation of the pyritic materials. It may be your iron pyrite, FeS2. And the characteristics of this acid sulfate horizon, as you can see here, the yellow color is the characteristic of a acid sulfate soil. So the presence of yellow color with a pH of 3.5 and the presence of sulfuric horizon. And also there is, as the pH is decreasing, you can see the toxicity of iron and aluminum as well as the hydrogen sulfate, H2S, is formed within these acid sulfate soils. So this is how acid sulfate soil will be formed, as you can see in case of mangrove areas. So where there is more amount of salt water formed, after drying, it leads to formation, it reacts with your water and leads to formation of sulfuric acid. Again, when more amount of organic matter is adding and also the sulfur is adding, under flooded conditions, it will lead to formation of acid sulfate soils. On drying, it will become very acidic. So if more amount of sulfide is present, then more amount of acidity is present, leading to decrease in the pH of the soil. So basically there are two types of acid sulfate soils. One is your potential acid sulfate soils and actual acid sulfate soils. So the potential acid sulfate soils will not oxidize in exposure to air, whereas this actual acid sulfate soils will oxidize in presence of your air. You can see the pH of these potential acid sulfate soils is 6.5 to 7.5. That is as a neutral level. There is no problem with this potential acid sulfate soils. Whereas your actual acid sulfate soils, they have a pH less than 4. It varies from 2.5 or 2 to around 4 pH. So this contains unoxidized iron sulfates, whereas this contains oxidized iron sulfates, which leads to formation of your jarosites, that is your sulfide minerals. Next problematic soil is your saline soils. Now we have learned about this acid soils which has a pH less than 6.5. Now this is your saline soils. So these are your salt affected soils which are having pH more than 8.5. So what the first is your saline soil. As you can see here, you can see white color patches that are appearing on the soil. So that is the characteristic of these saline soils, which is caused due to parent material and arid and semi-arid climate. And if you are allowing sea as a source of water, then also the saline soils will be formed. And also if you are restricting the leaching and transportation and low permeability of soil, and the groundwater, which is, if you are allowing the groundwater which is having more amount of salt content, then the saline soils can be formed. So next is your alkali soils, which are having pH more than 8.5. So difference between these saline soils and alkali soils is, so basically there are 4 types of cations and 4 types of anions present within these problematic soils. So those 4 cations are calcium, magnesium, sodium and potassium. Whereas your anions are carbonates, bicarbonates, chlorides and sulfates. The difference between these is, in case of alkali soil, the sodium, Na+, will be very dominant. Whereas in case of your saline soils, your calcium and magnesium cations will be dominant. And in these alkali soils, your carbonates and bicarbonates are very dominant. Whereas in case of saline soil, chlorides and sulfates are very dominant. So that is why you can see that there is an increase in exchangeable sodium in case of your alkali soils. So, and by use of your more amount of alkali water, which is more presence of more amount of sodium, if the water we are using is having more amount of sodium, then also it leads to formation of your alkali soil. And also there is excess use of your basic fertilizers, which releases hydroxides. Okay, and which is formed in your humid and semi-humid regions, these alkali soils particular, whereas these saline soils are formed within these arid and semi-arid climates. So what is the reason for having a pH of alkali or high pH? In saline soil, you are having a pH of less than 8.5. So the high pH in alkali soil is due to, you can see here, this sodium reacting with your carbonates and water, resulting in the formation of carbonic acid, the sodium ions and hydroxides, which will increase the pH of the soil. Okay, and also this, if there is any amount of free calcium carbonate, the hydrolysis of sodium clay happens. You can see the hydrogen clay is formed, which means it is decreases the pH of the soil. Whereas in case of presence of free calcium carbonate, you can see the calcium occupied clay is present, which will maintain the pH at a neutral condition or a alkali condition. So next is your degraded alkali soils. So degraded alkali soils is nothing but there is high amount of leaching of calcium and magnesium, only around 80% or around 95% of sodium is present within the soil colloids, so which will maintain instability in the structure. So you can see this sodium clay when is reacting with your water, resulting in the formation of hydrogen clay. So this is your degraded alkali soil, which happens when there is excessive losses of your calcium and magnesium and the sodium concentration is more. Okay, and also why these sodic soils are black in color. So these sodic soils, as you can see, there is a dispersion happens. So there is 2 conditions, that is your flocculation and dispersion. This flocculation happens when in the presence of your calcium and magnesium, where there is increase in the double diffuse layer. Okay, the thickness of the double diffuse layer will be decreased, resulting in the flocculation or aggregation of the soil particles. Whereas in case of sodic soil, you can see more amount of sodium is present, which increases the diffuse double layer thickness. So as diffuse layer thickness increases, the amount of clay particles which are formed as an aggregate, so these particles are removed into single particles. Okay, so which will be able to mix with your organic matter, resulting in the formation of black color in these alkali soils. Okay, and also the same amount of, when you're told about this soil surface crusting, so the same amount of hard pan which is formed, which is due to the more amount of sodium, which increases the diffuse double layer thickness, resulting in the individual particle of clay particles, which will enter into the macro and micropores, resulting in the formation of a hard pan layer. Next, coming to your calcareous soils, which contain a free amount of calcium carbonate. okay, which contains around 3 to around more than 25% of calcium carbonate on a weight basis. And the pH of this calcareous soils is around 7.6 to 8.3. So why these forms is due to the weathering of your calcare, that is your parent rock materials. Due to this weathering of parent rock materials, its forms in the calcareous soils will be formed. Or by giving more amount of long-term irrigation with a small amount of dissolved calcium carbonate, then also it leads to formation of your calcareous soils. So what is the difference between saline soils, sodic soils, and saline sodic and degraded alkali soils? As you can see, more amount of soluble salts are present within these saline soils, whereas in case of sodic soils you can see only sodium, exchangeable sodium, will be occupied in the soil complex. So the saline sodic, which is a combination of salinity as well as your alkalinity, and degraded alkali soils, as you can see in this hydrogen will be replacing the clay particles which is present on the upper layer, and the hydrogen which is present on the upper layer, whereas this sodium is present in the lower layer. So that is why the pH on the, so hydrogen is present, the pH will be 6 in case of your surface layer, and the pH is more than 8.5 in case of your lower layer. Whereas in case of your saline sodic and saline sodic soils, you can see the pH of saline soil is less than 8.5 and sodic soil is more than 8.5, and saline sodic soil is less than 8.5. And EC is an electrical conductivity. More amount of soluble salts is present within the saline soil. So that is why the EC is more than 4. Whereas less amount of soluble salts are present within the sodic soils. That is why pH is less than 4. In case of saline sodic soils, more amount of soluble salts are present. That is why the pH is more than 4. And ESP is nothing but your exchangeable sodium percentage. So as sodium is very less in case of your saline soils, the pH is less than 15. So ESP is less than 15. In case of sodic soils, the ESP is more than 15, and also in case of saline sodic soils, the ESP is more than 50. Next, coming to your sodium adsorption ratio, it is the relative amount of sodium present in the soil when compared to your calcium and magnesium ions. That is your sodium adsorption ratio. So as the sodium is very less in case of saline soils, the SAR value is less than 13, whereas in case of sodic and saline sodic soils, you can see the SAR is more than 13. And also this in SAR is less than 13 on the surface due to presence of more amount of hydrogen ions in the surface layer, and it is more than 13 in the case of lower layer due to presence of more amount of sodium ions. Next is your total soluble salt concentration is more than 0.1% in case of saline soils and less than 0.1% in case of sodic soils, and also in case of degraded alkali soils it is less than 0.1%. So the physical appearance, how it will appear, so it will be a flocculated condition in case of saline soils, and also in case of saline sodic soils, whereas you can see the dispersed condition happens in case of sodic and also degraded alkali soils. The color, physical color which we can identify is your saline soils we can identify as a white color, and sodic soils we can identify as a black color. And this degraded alkali soils, as sodium is present in the lower layer, you can see black color is present within the lower layer of the soil. So next, coming to your salts that I have already told. So these anions, chlorides and sulfates, are present more in case of your saline soil, whereas your carbonates and bicarbonates are more in case of your sodic soils. Whereas in case of saline sodic soils, all these are present almost in equal amount. So but in case of this degraded alkali soil, this sodium salt dominates in the lower layer. So the organic matter content is very low in case of your sodic soils. Okay. So next, coming to your saline soil. So these are the characteristics which we can say that the particular soil is a saline soil. The soluble salt concentration, that is your TSS, total soluble salts. If the TSS is more than 0.1%, it is highly injurious to plant growth as it causes osmosis reduction, which indirectly decreases the plant growth, leading to death of the plant. Next is your osmotic pressure. and electrical conductivity. So this is the classification given as per USDA. So if the electrical conductivity is less than 2, then they are normally called as a non-saline soils, which means you can grow any type of crops. Whereas in case of 2 to 4 EC, electrical conductivity, they are slightly saline soils, which means there are sensitive crops which can be affected if you are growing these plants in a particular saline soils having EC 2 to 4. Whereas from 4 to 8, many crops will be affected. Only the tolerant or very less crops will be able to tolerate. Whereas this EC of more than 8 to around 16, only tolerant crops or few tolerant crops can be able to survive. Next is your concentration of water soluble boron. So this boron is also an important factor for your soil quality, soil as well as your water quality. So if the concentration is less than 0.7% or 0.7 ppm, the crops are grown very safe. If the concentration is 0.7 to 1.5 ppm, they are marginal. And more than 1.5 ppm of boron is unsafe for the plant growth. So next coming to your alkali soil, which is present, it is measured in terms of your exchangeable sodium percentage as well as your sodium adsorption ratio. You can see here the exchangeable sodium divided by cation exchange capacity. So the amount of cations that are occupying a particular colloid, so if more amount of sodium ions are occupying, so how many amount of sodium ions are occupying for a particular CEC? So this CEC includes your calcium, magnesium, potassium. So out of this all cations present, how much amount of sodium is present within the exchangeable colloid complex? That is your exchangeable sodium percentage. Whereas this sodium adsorption ratio is measured in terms of your relative amount of sodium in terms of your calcium and magnesium. So what are the problems that are associated with your saline soils? So as you can see, as no crops can be grown, they will be remained barren. But they are productive soils if you are doing any amount of remedial measures. And also the wilting coefficient, as more amount, if you are giving more amount of water also, the wilting coefficient is very high. And the available soil moisture is low due to presence of more amount of salt. And the salt toxicity happens, which is reduces the amount of nutrients available to the crops. So these are the problems that are associated with your alkali soil, which is the dispersion of your soil colloids, which happens mostly on your, which affects mostly your physical parameters, such as your soil aeration will be completely stopped, and the hydraulic conductivity, the ease with which the water will move into the soil will be reduced, and also as water and air are completely absent, your microbial activity will be completely reduced. And there is a specific ion effect, which is nothing but your sodium, which causes deficiency of any other cation, such as your calcium, magnesium. And also at this high pH, very less amount of nutrients are available. And how to reclaim? So these are your reclamation measures for your chemical problems, as your acid soils, saline soils, and your alkali soil. In case of acid soils, we are using liming materials. So liming materials are nothing but which are having calcium and magnesium compounds. Okay, so this is this is your thick lime, which reacts with your acidic soil, leading to formation of calcium bicarbonate. So this will replace your hydrogen which is present on the colloid, leading to increase in the pH. So this lime requirement, so how to find lime requirement depends upon your pH, which means how much, for suppose if you are having a pH of 3.5 and you have to increase the pH around 6.5, so how much amount of pH you should increase, based on that we will give out the lime requirement. In the same way, so we are recommending around 2.5 tons per hectare of your lime for increasing the pH to 3.5 to 6.5. In the same way, if you are increasing from 4.2 to around 6.5, the amount of liming material will be reduced comparatively. So as pH increases, our liming requirement will be decided. And also it depends upon the buffering capacity, which means if more amount of iron and aluminium are present, then we should give more amount of lime. And also the chemical composition of the liming material. So there are different types of liming materials. So there are your calcium oxide, calcium hydroxide, calcium carbonate, dolomite, slaked lime. So these are the different types of chemical composition which is the liming material, and also the fineness of liming material. The more the fineness, the better is your soil liming requirement capacity. Next, the liming requirement. So it is defined as the amount of lime material required from taking a pH to a particular level. So this is how, as you can see here, the acid clay particle, you can see the calcium, potassium, magnesium ions are present and very less when compared to your hydrogen ions. Okay, when you are giving a calcium hydroxide, so you can see here the hydrogen ions will be removed in the form of your water, and the complexes which are formed by your hydrogen are replaced by your calcium and magnesium, making a neutral clay particles. This is how a reclamation happens in case of your acid soil. So these are your different types of liming materials. First is your quick lime, calcium oxide. Next is your slackle lime, calcium hydroxide. Next is your calcite, CaCO3. Dolomite means calcium magnesium carbonates. And also there are different types of slags, and also these are your organic materials which we can use for reclamation of your acid soils. These contains your calcium and magnesium compounds within it. So next is your efficiency of a particular liming material. How much effective a particular liming material will work. So that is based on 3 parameters. First is your neutralizing value or calcium carbonate equivalent, which is calculated by the molecular weight of calcium carbonate divided by the molecular weight of the particular liming material. For suppose if you are going to see about this calcium hydroxide, we are going to see first the molecular weight of calcium carbonate divided by the molecular weight of the calcium oxide, so which has a CC of 179. Okay, so next coming to your purity. The more the purity, the more will be the effectiveness, which means there is very less amount of residues present within the liming material. Next is degree of fineness, which means if the material is passing to a 60 mesh sieve, then it is 100% efficient. If the material is passing through a 20 mesh sieve, then it is 60% efficient. If the material is passing through the 8 mesh sieve, then it is called as 80% efficient. So from these materials, we are going to calculate this neutralizing index, which are percentage effective calcium carbonate. So the more percent effective calcium carbonate, the more will be the effectiveness of the liming material. And this is how one reaction will happen. As you can see, this hydrogen which is present is replaced by your calcium after incorporation of your slackle lime. Okay, next is your liming factor, which is nothing but the theoretical amount, the actual amount of lime that can be calculated from your theoretical amount of lime. So these are the crops which can respond directly to your lime application. You can see here PGNP, soybean and cotton. They are highly responsive to your lime application. You can see here chickpea, maize, sorghum, pea, groundnut. They are medium response to your lime application, whereas your millets, rice, potato, they are showing very low response if you are applying a particular lime material. And these are the acid tolerant crops. Even at a pH of very less pH also, these crops can be easily grown. The light tolerance variety is your alfalfa and sugar beet, whereas your moderate tolerant varieties are your peanut, cabbage, carrot, onions, radish, spinach and cauliflower. Whereas your medium tolerant varieties, where medium tolerant crops are cowpea, soybean, cotton, wheat, tomato, sorghum and millets. Whereas the strong, which can withstand more amount of acidity, is your tobacco, apple, grapes and watermelon. And very high, that is our pH of 4.5 also, we can grow this particular citrus crop, which can able to withstand this acidity. And these are the management practices. So these are the reclamation measures for your acid soils. Now coming to your acid sulfide soils. So it depends upon the thickness of the sulfide layer. If the thickness of sulfide layer is more, then more amount of drainage or leaching is required. So the common practice that can be followed in case of acid sulfide soils is you're keeping the area flooded. So if you are keeping only under dry conditions, there is a formation of your acid sulfate soil. If you are keeping the area under a flooded condition, automatically the pH will go to a neutral level, and also controlling the water table. Okay, if you are keeping more amount of water table, you can maintain a reduced conditions leading to a better pH or management of your acid sulfate soils. And also by combining this liming and leaching, we can manage this acid sulfate soils. Next is your reclamation of salt affected soils, particularly this sanding. So which means in case of your alkali soil, there is more amount of clay particles will be present. So these fine particles, if you are mixing with your coarse particles, it will increase the permeability and also the capillarity of a particular soil. And these are the techniques which we can follow: deep ploughing, subsoiling to remove the shallow subsurface hard pan, okay, and also the profile inversion, the scraping to remove the layers that are formed on the surface and also in the subsurface. Next, the chemical amelioration of your salt affected soils. In case of saline soils, we are using irrigation water to remove the excess amount of salts. Whereas in case of your sodic soils or alkali soils, we are using gypsum as an amendment, in which you can see the sodium which is occupying your clay colloid. When you are giving some amount of calcium sulfate, so you are giving gypsum, you can see the colloid is occupied by your calcium and the sodium sulfate will be leached outside. So this is how a replacement of sodium is happening by your calcium or magnesium. And these saline soils, as we told, it depends upon the irrigation water. If you are giving more amount of irrigation water, automatically due to diffusion process, the salts which are present within the soil will going towards the water. So that is given by a leaching requirement, which is nothing but the ratio of the equivalent depth of drainage water to the depth of the irrigation water, which is expressed in your percentage. Next, coming to alkali soil. So these are different amendments. So gypsum you can use in case of alkali soil until a pH of 9. So if you are having a pH of around 8 to 9, we can use your sulfur, iron sulfate and iron pyrite. Whereas in case of limestone, we can use soils having pH less than 8. So these are the reactions involved. As we already told, the clay particles which is occupied by your sodium is replaced by your calcium, and the sodium sulfate will be going outside, leached outside. So what happens in case of your element, this is your elemental sulfur, in which you can remove the amount of colloid complex will be from the sodium, and the sodium sulfate will be leached outside. And this is for production of sulfuric acid. As the production of sulfuric acid increases, you can see there is a decrease in the pH. It will be going from an alkali condition to a neutral condition. And this is your iron pyrite. So where you can see the calcium will be occupying your clay particle and the sodium sulfate will be leached outside. So and this is your gypsum requirement. So how much amount of gypsum you can recommend to a particular soil if it's an alkali soil. Whereas in case of your acidic soil, we can see the amount of pH initially, and after addition of lime, we'll see the amount of pH. So what is the amount of difference we are getting? Based on that, we can give the lime recommendation. Same in case of your gypsum requirement. So this is your calculated with the formula ESP initial, exchangeable sodium percentage we can see initially, that is before application of gypsum. And final, after application of ESP, we can see the ESP. After application of gypsum, we can see the exchangeable sodium percentage into cation exchange capacity, which means the amount of the calcium that is occupying this sodium divided by 100. This is how we can calculate the gypsum requirement by a particular soil. So next, coming to your biological amelioration. So we have seen your physical amelioration or mechanical measures or chemical measures. Next is your biological measures to control a saline soil or a sodic soil. So that is using of your green manures, particularly daincha, which is very effective in controlling this alkalinity, and use of this your amendments, that is your FYM or organic manures. These are your biological measures which we can use for reducing that soil alkalinity. Next, these are your salt tolerant to crops. This is salinity tolerant crops. So this you can see here sesbania, rice, sugarcane, oats, turnip. So these are very highly tolerant to your salt. Even in case of high salt concentration, we can be able to grow these particular crops. Whereas a medium tolerant crops such as your castor, cotton, sorghum, maize, and particularly your agroforestry crops such as your guava, pomegranate. And these are moderately sensitive crops, which means your radish, cabbage, tomato, and sweet potato. And highly sensitive crops are your lemon, as this will be grown in very low acidity. But in case of it is highly sensitive to your saline soils. And also your apple, which is a medium sensitive in case of your acidity. Next, management of your calcareous soils. The pH of the calcareous soils is basically 7.6 to 8.3. The thing is, you have to add some amount of acidic fertilizers and also the amount of green manure crops to increase the pH of the, so decrease the pH of the soil to a neutral level. Next is your biological problems. So first is your soil organic carbon. As you can see, the main management problem is it will reduce the nutrient cycling, or it will disturb the food chain, so which causes the disturbance in the soil environment. The management practice which we can do is no-till farming, which means you are not disturbing the microbial activity within the soil, or application of your compost or manures, or covering the crops, which will maintain optimum conditions for the population of your for increasing the microbial population, as well as it will increase the soil organic carbon. So next biological problem is your earthworms. So this is an indicator of your little or no organic residues, as this earthworms will feed on these organic residues and release some amount of compost or the waste. This will lead to formation of your soil aggregate stability, and the pathway which the earthworms will grow will act as a natural drainage. So management practice which we can do is the same, the no-till farming or the crop rotation. So which we can increase the subsoil can be coming to the surface soil. So there can be continuous rotation of during this crop rotation, doing this monocot along with the dicot, and also giving some amount of food, that is your manures, will also manage this earthworms. So next, coming to your soil respiration, it will increase. So this is an indicator for your microbial activity. The soil respiration is more, there is more microbial activity. The soil respiration is less, there is a less microbial activity. And also it affects this plant root respiration in case of your very congested soils. So there is very less amount of your so respiration happens, or in case of that is in purely in reduced conditions, this will lead to formation of your harmful compounds. And the management practice which we can do is increasing in the soil organic matter will automatically increase the microbial activity, leading to enhanced soil respiration. So another final is your soil enzymes, which is very much important for the plant nutrition point of view, as these enzymes are very much required for taking that plant available nutrients from unavailable form to available form, or increase the process from so fasten the process from unavailable to available form. The management technique is your application of organic amendments or any type of your amendments.